time to hammer.
Oh, I gotta really try hard.
Shut it down!
Somehow it's the best.
After the credits.
A Yumchunks podcast.
Yumchunks!
Welcome, one and all, to episode 31 of After the Credits, a Yumchunks podcast. I am Matt Chewy. With us today, we have Chris Schmidt. How you doing, Chris?
Chris! Get it? Because it's like Shazam. Chris!
Did you just turn into a little boy?
I did.
He turned into a slightly older man.
Yeah. Well, his peak, his physical peak, it was only like a couple years ago, so it's not that big of a change. We also have Ryan Davis with us today. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great.
Good. And we have Sean Davis. What's up?
Hey, what's up? I'm Sean, and I'm here.
Good. I mean, if it wasn't already evident, Sean, what are we doing today? What's our main topic?
We are going to talk about Shazam.
There we go.
The newest DC film that takes place in the DC universe?
Possibly.
Question mark?
We'll definitely address that.
We'll find out.
But before we do that, let's launch into another engaging segment of the Chunkfire stories. A segment in which I ask Sean, hey, how you been?
Oh, thanks for asking, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
I've been good. It's been, when's the last one? Last was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's been a eventful 2 weeks, kind of. I saw this movie. I saw a couple Netflix films. Have you guys seen the movie Circle on Netflix?
Is that from the book?
Yes.
The Circle with Emma Watson?
No, that's The Circle.
No, not the Tom Hanks one.
Oh, no.
Just Circle.
Well, I haven't seen that either. I don't know why I specified.
Okay, well, have you heard of The Cube? Do you guys remember that kind of like thriller horror film?
Yeah.
That's kind of in premise, that's the closest thing I could think of. But, well, first of all, it's just awful. It's an awful film, but it's hilarious. Like, not hilarious bad as in it's, what cheesy, schlocky action or death scenes or whatever. It's just like, how did this get made? How did any of this get made? Like, it looks like, so the premise is 50 people are trapped in a room, and every 2 minutes they vote and someone has to die in the room. And so it's just an hour and a half movie of 50 people standing in a room going, no, let's kill that guy. No, let's kill that guy. No.
Sounds like somebody really liked the ending of Dark Knight and went, hey, wait a minute. The boat scene?
Yep. I mean,
yeah, really? Oh, okay.
So, like, there's no main character, kind of. Like, there'll be, like, one character who has a little bit of dialogue with these other random characters, and then they die. And so then these characters have some lines with these characters, and then they die. And then, like, it almost like everyone should watch this film just to understand how to write a film and what not to do. Because it's just, it's so funny. And the ending is hilariously like they were trying to do something like, got you, society. Right, guys? So...
I'm glad to hear Netflix is keeping it, as always, well-maintained, well-curated library of original content.
So that was...
Good on you, Netflix.
That was eventful. What else? I finished this book. It's a classic sci-fi book that I highly recommend. Do you guys know the author Ursula K. Le Guin? She's a classic sci-fi fantasy writer.
Mm-hmm.
I do not.
I recommend her. She's written, her probably most famous works are the Wizard of Earthsea fantasy series. But she's written a handful of other things. Anyways, I wrote one of her books. It was me.
Oh man!
I read a book of hers. It's called The Lathe of Heaven, and it's about this guy who, when he dreams, his dreams they alter reality, so that he wakes up in the morning and whatever he dreamt is the new reality, and like he's the only one who knows that it changed. Everyone else is like, no, this is just how reality has always been. So like he wakes up and half the world's population was wiped out by a plague 30 years ago. Yeah, that's how it always was. you don't remember the big plague when everyone died. So it's a really cool, interesting premise and just like a cool sci-fi thing. And it made me wonder if I had that ability and what kind of world my night terrors would create.
Oh no, no good.
No.
I feel like I've experienced that world with you, having like shared a small like cabin in the woods.
I mean, everyone would be just constantly hearing me scream, I guess. So
Yeah, I suppose.
it would be
It'd be the worst thing. Yes.
Yes. And what else? Oh, and then one last thing is I'm currently in Arkansas. So
Oh, that's where you are.
yeah.
For anybody
They barely
listening,
have internet
he wouldn't
here.
answer that question for us before we started recording. You're like, Sean, where are you? What's going on tonight?
It's top secret. No, I'm in Arkansas. I'm actually on a film shoot. I'm filming some friends of mine are making a movie, and I'm second ADing them.
One
That
of-
is,
one of,
assistant directing.
One of DC's 10 Joker movies in production.
Yep. This is the one with Jared Leto after he backed out and then rejoined. So.
Okay, it's the one that they let you
Takes
guys make.
place in Arkansas.
They let you guys make the Jared Leto one.
Yes. Anyway, so yeah, I'm in Arkansas, and that's
Actually
kinda
legitimately a
interesting.
that's a cool context. It's cool. That was a cool
When
art.
I flew in, there was lightning on the horizon, and everyone talks like they do in the movies with an accent. Like, and I'm not doing it like to make fun of them, but it really is like, y'all, have a good time, y'all, and I find myself partially mimicking their accent as I'm like more around them. It's
Okay,
weird.
but you have to be regular again when you come back. Sorry.
I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you.
I
really
guess
need you
that
to.
leads us to the next question. How long are you due to stay out there?
That is a good question. I'm scheduled to be out here for a couple weeks, so it's a
Okay.
3-week film shoot. So
Wow,
yeah,
awesome. That's really cool. Good.
yeah, it's pretty crazy, and it's just awesome to be like on set. I mean, it's also insane for anyone who knows anything about movie making or filmmaking. The stories are true about the long days. They're literally like 14-hour days, and they're just nonstop, exhausting. But it's cool. Like,
It's a neat environment.
Making a movie.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome.
We're in an abandoned hospital, so like there's all this medical equipment everywhere, and like it's kind of creepy, but also just like weird that like we're shooting the production office is like there's a plug-in for a EKG, or like if someone is gonna die, there's a whole bunch of defibrillators. So
Right.
that's nice.
I mean, everything you just described has not convinced me that you're not filming the next Joker film.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I cannot confirm nor deny that if the Joker.
Look,
is
we
in
get
our
it. There's
film or not.
NDAs involved. Whatever. It's fine. You don't need to tell us
exactly.
anything about the movie. That's okay.
Anyways, but yeah, that's what I've been up to. So,
Awesome.
like I said, been eventful.
A friend would tell us.
Wow. Gloves are off.
Hey, Chris, tell us a story around the chunk fire about yourself.
Wait, what?
Who did
That
you
me?
ask?
As in, what have you been up to?
Your Skype cut out for a second, but did you
Yeah, you're
ask
kind of
Chris?
cutting out.
That's okay. I think you'll be
It's all
okay.
those lightning storms.
Oh no! I guess it's your turn, Chris. That's the point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. So, TV show wise, just real fast, I finished season 3 of Santa Clarita Diet, which that show is hilarious.
Wow, they're on season 3 already. That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably one of their best shows. Timothy Oliphant man, he kills me. He's
Oh yeah,
hilarious.
I watched the first like 2 or 3 episodes, and I kind of went, okay, I know what the show's gonna be, and I didn't watch any more of it. You know, I don't know. I guess I didn't give it a fair shot.
I mean, it goes in some pretty bizarre directions as you get
That's-
further on into it, but
right.
I do recommend it. I also watched a little bit of the new Netflix nature documentary, Our Planet. That I found out I have an irrational hatred of flamingos. Matt.
I want to know what a rational hatred of flamingos looks like.
When is it justified to
Just
be
look at
afraid
me.
of flamingos?
So yeah, that's basically what I've been watching. I finished Devil May Cry 5. Do a review for that sometime in the near future. And I've been playing a couple VR games in my spare time. And then books, I finally finished the most recent Murakami book, The Killing Commendator, which was a Murakami book.
Yeah.
And then I just started this book. Have any of you read Console Wars?
Oh, I love Console Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening to that, and I'm digging it pretty heavily.
That's supposed to be
TV show.
It was supposed to be a movie, and now it's, I guess, going to be a limited run series, like an 8-episode thing or something like that. I don't know if it's going to be Netflix or what.
Yeah, I mean, it aids itself to it just fine. So
I think episodic is probably a better way to go.
yeah, it's pretty dense. Lots of interesting events, but other than that, just working away at the Ready at Dawn. Ready at Dawn.
Ready at Dawn. Good. Okay.
But Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I also finished Santa Clarita Diet season 3. Very, very funny. Yeah, Tim Lee Oliphant is just hilarious, fantastic. Yeah, that was good. I also finished Umbrella Academy, which I actually liked more than I thought I would. I started out not liking it very much at all, but I ended up really liking it at the end. So, yeah, that was good. I just finished watching this movie on Netflix. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it was actually a prequel to Captain Marvel. It stars Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson.
Unicorn Store.
Oh, I know.
Yes, Unicorn Store. That was something. But the funny thing about it is it came out in 2017. Were they just like keeping it in their back pocket, and then they just like, oh, Brie Larson and Sam Jackson, let's kick this out now that Captain Marvel's out.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Because they probably looked at what they had and they were like, oof, this is not going to push itself.
Yeah, exactly. That's the impression I got. I took a picture of Black Hole. You can see that in Google.
You did that?
Yeah, that was me.
I was wondering. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. The next one you take, could you get a little bit more in focus?
Yeah, I know. I was surprised. I must have had like some schmutz on the lens. I need to clean that off first. So it's kind of funny. So Sean, you're on vacation, I guess. Although it's kind of a working vacation. So, but something kind of funny happened.
I'm kind of getting paid, but yeah.
Yeah,
he's getting paid in hugs.
I was going to ask you how you got the time off from work.
Right,
but
that was
what
I was going to ask you, actually.
I don't really care about that. That seems like red tape stuff I don't care about.
Jeez.
Anyways, I mean, it's an HR issue. It sounds like it's really not interesting. Anyway, continue, Ryan.
I was going to ask, is it paid time off, or did they just said like, oh, you can work a second job real quick?
I mean, I have a ton of PTO saved up, so I'm taking PTO. It essentially is vacation. I'm taking a vacation in Arkansas and working for.
You're taking a vacation to work,
right?
Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked kind of is that the other day at work, I was talking with some friends who had just come back from a vacation, and I was like, oh, yeah, vacation. I forgot about that. And I started thinking to myself, does anyone know when our vacation time caps out? And they're like, yeah, it's after such and such days. And then I looked at my, PTO hours, and I am capped out on PTO hours. So I have been no longer accruing
You've been losing
PTO,
money,
which was sort of depressing. Yeah, I'm basically just wasting money.
For how long? That's the worst.
I know.
You have to start using it then, right?
What's that?
You're in a position where you must take time off.
So
right?
I'm taking...
It's detrimental to you if you do not take time off.
It
That's
is.
Where you're at.
I'm wasting money.
You're ruining capitalism right now. Western society is falling apart.
Yeah. So that was a sort
Millennials are ruining everything.
I know.
Oh, no.
Even PTO.
I ate too much avocado toast. And then they took my house. All right.
Well, anyway, that's what I've been up to. Just working and not taking PTO.
Okay.
What about you, Matt? What are you doing now?
What have I been up to? Well, my life for the last couple of weeks has been just a few calamities. For one thing, I don't know if I told you guys all, but I went back to the hospital for a couple days.
Yeah.
I had some blood clots, and which was not totally unexpected because I have a genetic thing that I inherited that makes me more prone to blood clots. And then they were like, yeah, brain cancer makes you prone to blood clots, and having your head cut open makes you prone to blood clots, and everything going on here makes you prone to it. So you're going to get it at some point. And
You have 120% chance of getting.
yeah. Me in particular, I was probably at that time the most likely person on the planet to get blood clots. So
You're more blood clot than men now.
yeah. Exactly. Actually, kind of. But anyway, so I was having trouble breathing one day, and so we went to the urgent care, and they were like, "Yeah, dude, you need to go to the ER." And then the ER is like, "Yeah, you got to stay here for a few days." So that happened, but I'm on that new meds, and I'm all good. So like I'm breathing again. I can use my lungs again, which is great. I started my treatments, and that's been going pretty smoothly so far. Knock on wood. Other calamities, like I woke up at 4 a.m. the other night because I smelled burning plastic, and apparently our water heater blew out, so we had to get our water heater replaced. So those are all crazy things that have been happening to me.
I mean, I don't know anything about, architecture or building houses, but I feel like a water heater of all things should not be prone to burning out.
I don't know.
Right? I mean, anything with the word heater in it, if it somehow gets too hot, does anyone else feel like that shouldn't happen?
I feel like whatever the heating mechanism is eventually going to succumb to its own heat, right?
Right.
Yeah, I can imagine a couple things that may cause it to overheat. Like those things all have filters and stuff. So if the filters aren't cleaned enough, that could lead to overheating. Things like that.
Also, there's usually an electrical element, and electrical elements can just fail on their own reasons. So, and again, I don't know what caused it to, but I'm glad I could smell in the middle of the night because that's the other thing that Maeve's been sick for the last week. So, like, she's all stuffed up and couldn't smell it, and so like I had to be like, our house is on fire or something. I don't know. It's 4 a.m. I don't know what's going on, but we had to figure this out. So, yeah, that's a thing. But in less depressing topics, Sean, I actually took one. Yeah. I actually took your recommendation from last episode, and I got Baba and Baba Is You.
Oh yeah,
on the Switch. It's a mind bender. It's really clever. And I showed it to Maeve, and she got really into it. And I showed it to my sister Andrea, and she got super into it for the time that she was visiting. She got through a whole bunch of puzzles, but she was saying that like it reminded her of like LSAT study questions. She said that like the way the logic works and the way the LSATs work is a very similar type of like part of your brain that you have to use to figure them out. And
I mean, I never have taken the LSAT, obviously, but there is a certain element of almost like scripting to it, like very basic level logic of scripting and not quite programming, but yeah, there's certainly that element to it, and like in a way that's so like digestible. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, that's great. All the people that I just said that I showed it to, like, I'm dumber than. So like they got through way more puzzles, and I'm like, just like I'm still at some of the earlier puzzles, just in stare at the screen for 15 minutes mode. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's great. It's excellent. It's such a unique game, and I hope everybody tries it at least like the first few puzzles just to see how the flow of it is. It's so unique. So good recommendation, Sean.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I hope other listeners check it out because it is an indie game, and it's always like indie games like that, like they're just kind of word of mouth. They don't have, a huge team. It's just a couple people putting together, and like it's awesome how much publicity this has already got. But it's just kind of cool to see that.
I've actually seen memes on Tumblr like that are Baba Is You related. I don't quite get them all, but I think maybe that's part of the spirit of Baba Is You. I think that's part of it. Is you have the meme that you have to figure out.
You have to solve the meme.
Exactly. Yeah. So you made a recommendation. I'm going to make a recommendation from my last thing in sharing circle. So I got another game. I got a gift card for GameStop, and I turned it into a Switch Nintendo Store gift card, and I bought a handful of indie games. So one of them was Baba. I got that game Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time, but I haven't played it yet because it's couch co-op, so I want to get some people to play it with. But the other game I got is a game called The Mummy Demastered. Have any of you guys heard of that? No. Okay, so this is...
I have heard of it, but I've never played it.
Okay, this is weird. I'll just go ahead and explain it for those of you who don't know what it is. But so it's from Way Forward Studios. They do the Shantae Half Genie Hero series, so they do a lot of retro type games. So this game is a retro throwback, like 2D side scroller Metroid game, but it's themed to the Mummy reboot movie with Tom Cruise that came out a couple years ago. So it's a movie tie-in to the Tom Cruise Mummy from Way Forward Studios, which is a solid game studios, right? And the thing is, like, you know how Metroidvania is a thing that's popped up because, like, indie gaming, there's a lot of 2D indie gaming, so that they kind of just called that the genre. It's Metroidvania. Like, I would want to call this that, but it's not even, because it's just Super Metroid. Like, it's not even like an homage or has similar gameplay styles. It's just Super Metroid. It goes way beyond homaging. Like, the way the save rooms look, the way the menu screens look, the way the music is, and that's the thing about it, is that it has no right to be as good as Super Metroid, but like it's as good as that. It's about as good as it. There's a couple neat things too, because you play as the faceless soldiers and not as Tom Cruise. So if you die, they just send another soldier in, and you're that person now. But you don't have any. But the last soldier turns into a mummy zombie. So you lose all your gear. You have to go find your other soldier, kill him, and take your gear back every time if you want all of your new guns and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's like a new little thing that they threw into Super Metroid. But otherwise, the graphics are the same. The room sizes are the same. Traversing the map, finding the room that has the upgrade that you need. It's if you like Super Metroid, you will like this game. I don't even know how else to put it. So I don't know. The way I like to think of it is it's like a Berenstain universe type thing, where like there was a timeline that we're not living in where like this was a game first on the Super Nintendo, and then this was just the movie version was just one of a string of terrible video game adaptations that came out decades later. And for some reason in our universe they came out backwards, and when nobody can quite figure out why. That's my theory for this game existing, because nothing else makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
But anyway, it's a great game. I recommend it. The Mummy Demastered. And that's all I got. That's all I got for this week. So, did we hit everybody?
Vince.
Okay. Hey, I'm glad to be here. It's Vince. Got my hat on and I got my discs.
Sounds like Mickey Mouse.
I'm Vince. Definitely Vince. Well, thanks, Vince. That's good. It's good to hear that you're doing great. All right, Sean, I'm gonna pass this over to you, or whoever I'm passing it to, because this segment is over.
Okay, so we're going to go with the recap again. Heads up, we're getting to spoilers. Obviously, the summary is the spoiler. And then the discussion, we're going to get into details. But Chris, tell them what happened in Shazam.
Oh boy, so many things happened. It all started in the year 1649. No.
This sounds like it's going to be shorter than last week's, definitely. Good job. Glad we discussed that. Anyway, continue.
No, I mean, it starts off with this very old wizard that is seeking to pass on his powers. And he is trying to find a child, I assume a child for the sake of youth, to pass his powers on to. But they have to be pure of heart. And so plenty of kids get brought in, and none of them seem to pass. Cut to present day. There's young Billy Batson, who was abandoned by his mother at some point when he was like 4 or something. And he's searching for her to reconnect with her. And during this process, he's hopping from foster home to foster home. Eventually, he has to come to the defense of his current foster home friend, Freddie. And in that process, he beats up some bullies and starts running away. And the old wizard's like, I like this kid, this kid. And so he summons them to him through the ice portal and grants him his power. All Billy has to say is the name Shazam, and he becomes the best version of himself as an adult, a 38-year-old Zachary Levi. And from there, he goes on this fun adventure with Freddy to really understand his powers and his place in the world, trying to connect more with this new family that he's never known, and getting closure on his old family. And in the process, one of the kids that was rejected by Shazam stumbles across some powers, and they fight, and they go, "Wow!" and lots of funny, humorous things happen along the way. And then in the end, Shazam he's Shazam.
There you go.
He Shazams.
Okay.
Cool. What a good, you did it. So now everyone who hasn't seen the movie could pretend like they saw the movie and listen to us discuss it.
Vince, we know.
Come back to the end where I'll do an actual synopsis. No, just kidding.
You will not.
So what did people think of Shazam? Far more important than the film itself is our thoughts on the film. Ryan, let's start with you. Find your opinions
Yeah, sure.
and tell them to us.
I like this film, the film that we're talking about, the Shazam film. It was a good time at the movies. I have some little things here and there that didn't work for me. Some of the jokes didn't play probably as well as they were hoping, or at least for me. I thought Zachary Levi was really good. I thought he was really fun on camera. A lot of good jokes with him and fun times, good facial expressions. Those are always good, you know. Some of the character things didn't really work for me, and overall, I felt like they didn't commit to the humor maybe as much as I would want them to. Like if you could take half of the commitment, or if I can use the expression, it felt a little bit half-assed. If we could just take half of the ass that was used in Deadpool 2 and put it towards this movie, you'd have two movies that were fully assed.
Beautiful.
Yeah, all right.
And now all I
Good.
can think
Full
of
ass
is
recommendation
Ass
for
McGee.
Ryan.
Can we say Bud instead?
Yeah, we can redo
No,
that with
because
Bud.
that's not the name of the show.
Okay.
Full butt recommendation from Ryan.
But that's what I felt
What
about the
about
film. What did anyone else think,
What is
eh?
your butt recommendation in the film?
Chewy.
What did I think? I felt something while watching
Yeah.
this movie that I hadn't felt in a long time, and that was just pure, unadulterated joy. I loved this movie. It's my favorite DC movie since the Dark Knight trilogy. And I don't think I'm going to be particularly interesting during this conversation because I don't have a lot of negative points about it. I'm sure they'll come up as we hash them out, and I'll probably agree with some of the points that you make, but I loved this movie. Next.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, cool. Full-hearted recommendation. Another full butt from Chewy, but on its own, not including Deadpool's butt.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what about you?
I mean, I'm in the camp with Chewy. There's not a lot I didn't like about this movie, and I'll be very interested to hear what humor didn't land with Ryan, because I thought pretty much every piece of it landed with me. So it gets 5 out of 4 stars because that's the scale I use.
Dumb scale.
So Ryan, let's get into some of your points, since it seems like you have more points than Chewy and I have.
Well, I mean, yeah. To Chewy's point, I think it's if you have a problem with the film, that's like a discussion point, right? We can kind of talk about that and see what you guys' opinions were. But I thought I enjoyed the film, so we can talk about the good points of the film too, right? Whatever jokes did work versus which ones did not. But one joke, I think at least, that did not work for me was near the end of the film when the Shazam man and the bad man were tussling in the sky. There's that where they're kind of a distance apart, and he was like monologuing, and Shazam couldn't hear him. I think conceptually that was funny, but it just something about the way the beats worked. It didn't.
I was laughing my ass off.
See, I also
sorry,
was.
Sorry, but
See, I was also dying laughing during that scene. So I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that's just like I said, I think just some things didn't quite land for me. I don't know.
Because to me, what really was hilarious about it was the concept of it, right?
Well, that's what I mean. That's exactly what I just said.
People monologue in the sky all the time in superhero movies, but
right.
When the joke happened, I was like, "Oh my god, this makes all the sense." They would never be able to hear each other monologuing.
See,
ever.
I think that a less subtle script, and even if you want to go extreme, something like those superhero movie, like the scary movie parodies, like if you're just trying to cram in like tongue in cheek, comic books are dumb because of this. Comic book movies are silly because they do this, right? They could have gone farther with that, but the fact that it's only just that joke and maybe a couple other smaller things in the movie shows a little bit of restraint. So they're like, oh well, if the guy did start monologuing 50 feet away, like that's a situation that we could realistically laugh at without having to force it into the movie. And
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, and I guess I do agree with that. But what you just hit on there is maybe one of my issues with the film as a whole, in that it's kind of like I wish they either went further with it or did less with it. Because you're right, they do try to strike a balance of like, oh, let's kind of poke a little fun at superhero tropes and that kind of thing, but they either didn't do it enough to make me kind of buy into the tone of the film, if that was what they were trying to achieve,
sure,
or just do it less and then either make the joke straight. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but I do think that for me, I think they got the right balance. That's
Okay.
So I don't know. I guess it depends on the tastes. I mean, that's true for anything. But I think for me, I was talking about it with my sisters afterwards. Tonally, it feels really like a Sam Raimi movie. And I was kind of feeling that with like the scene where the boardroom scene where they let the monsters on the the 7 deadly sin monsters take out the boardroom reminded all of us a lot of. We all said the same thing at the same time after the movie of the scene in Spider-Man 2 where they're trying to saw the octopus arms off of Doc Ock, and it's like getting all of the surgeons, and it's all horror movie Sam Raimi, but then it's also got the silly stuff, and it also is a little pokes fun at itself too. So I don't know. This reminded me of like that tone, that style, but with today's modern special effects.
Coincidentally enough, I mean, along those lines, I mean, Sam Raimi had a horror background. This director, Sandberg, he also comes from a horror background. He did the Lights Out short that eventually became the movie, and then he also did the Annabelle Creation movie. So,
which I heard was actually decent, I guess. I don't know. I stopped after the first Annabelle.
So I mean, there's a lot like you hit on. There's a lot in common between those two movies. And,
well,
I mean, the same thing. It also follows a lot of similar plot points as kind of Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, right? Like he's kind of using his powers in selfish ways, and that's used as a method of teaching him, right? Because he's like on the top of the stairs, just friggin' doing the lightning to Rocky's theme,
right?
Electrocutes the bus and everything, right? Like, so, yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of agree with what Ryan was saying in terms of a lot of the humor not working specifically for me, but I kind of criticize it for that, but I think on further reflection, one of the things that I, kind of like about it more so is instead of like thinking about it like, oh, they're parodying superhero films, or not parodying, but like, joking about the tropes in superhero films. I think more the film is going for less of that perspective and more perspective just of almost like a 14-year-old kid. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, how would a 14-year-old kid, like, it's not that a 14-year-old kid is poking fun at the tropes of superhero film. It's just 14-year-old kids are kind of sarcastic and have that sense of humor.
Right.
And to me, that's like, I think that's where a lot of the jokes came from. It was less that, all these other superhero films when they monologue in the sky. It was more like, some silly, dumb, kind of sarcastic kid is going to think this is funny, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, but the thing is, for me, it works in both. It works both ways.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because of the context of him being a 14-year-old kid, it feels natural in the script, but it also double purpose there, and that's why it works for me.
Yeah.
Plus, I think more to that point, like just the commitment, right? It was so honest and it's humor throughout, right? Like, so I understand, like it feels like some of the stuff, maybe some of the jokes probably went a little too goofy or whatever, but I never felt like anything was, like an outlier, flat out outlier. I felt like it was all honestly within a certain range that the movie committed to and never went beyond it.
I guess I'll say for me, nothing felt forced. Like whether something was funny or not, it was different for me. Whether or not it actually felt like sometimes the humor in the Marvel movies feel a little like we had to throw a joke here, right? Where most of them felt like it was a natural place to put a joke. Yeah. So I guess that's the distinction for me.
So how did you guys feel about just less specifically the humor, but more the originality, or perhaps what you consider lack thereof, of the tone? To me, it felt like it was original in its current time and place, but it felt like a movie that belonged from 20, 30 years ago. Not like purely on nostalgia.
This doesn't,
but that it just
sorry,
fit that tone. Yeah, it just felt like the tone of films that came out in the early 90s or even the 80s. And do you think that's a good thing, bad thing? And like, I guess what I'm saying is like, okay, they're recapturing that element, but is it good to mimic that, or do you think it's stands on its own?
Okay, I got a lot of thoughts on this one. I'm sorry, I got a lot of thoughts on this topic because it's the only thing I think of when the movie was over. This doesn't feel like a superhero movie to me. It doesn't feel like a modern superhero to me, especially. It feels like the kind of movie that we would have watched as a kid. Like, I don't want to... The Goonies is the obvious one, but let's talk about, like, maybe Critters or Never-Ending Story. The kind of movie where it's accessible to kids. Kids will relate to the characters because they're younger characters. The story is simple, but it's not pandering. But it's also scary, and it's also got real stakes, and it's also got moments that are genuinely thrilling and monsters that are scary for kids to look at. It's the kind of movie that when we were kids, we'd feel like... I don't know, maybe a little accomplished because we watched them and we could tell our friends on the playground, did you see that movie? Because I saw it. No, I didn't get scared. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like one of those kind of movies. And I think that's what you're talking about when you say like 20, 30 years ago. But
exactly.
I don't think that element of it was intentional. I think when things like Stranger Things, they are trying to capture that. I think they just accidentally made a good movie that reminds me of that. Maybe not accidentally. That's mean. But what I'm saying is that I don't think that they were trying to say, oh, we got to make it like a Never-Ending Story or The Goonies. I think that they just made a good movie and they did the thing that I haven't seen in a while. And I think that's why when I said I felt this type of joy that I hadn't felt in a long time, I think that's where it comes from. It's just nice. It's refreshing to see that kind of a good movie again. You know what I mean?
It definitely comes off like DC's been more hands off as they've gone along since Wonder Woman, right? And I feel like, especially in this case, because it was Shazam, a character that nobody really knew anything about, not even Wonder Woman or Aquaman, where people have like kind of an idea, right?
Sure, yeah.
I feel like Shazam was so original that they were like, okay, Sandberg, you work with your writers, you make your movie, right? And I feel like that's where this movie succeeds more than anything. Well,
the other thing that you mentioned, the more hands off since Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman was a good step in the right direction for DC. Aquaman arguably was. I enjoyed it, but people are split on that one. But the thing is that visually, they still sort of felt like Snyder movies, and this one didn't. Even as good as I thought Wonder Woman was, it still had an ending and a lot of scenes that felt very 300, Watchmen, and all the other ones. And this one, it was, I think part of its freshness is that it didn't have that. It was just, look, let's make this movie that we want to make, and let's make it look the way we want to look for how it's going to best be for this story, etc. So that was nice too. I appreciated that. Sorry to derail that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
I think we all agree. It's fresh.
Sean,
well, speaking of... Oh, yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I was just going to remark on your comment about the tone of the film feeling old, and also tying back in what you guys were saying about not really many people know about Shazam or this movie at all. In fact, when I told people that I saw this movie, they're like, Shazam? What is that? You mean the 1990s film starring Shaq?
That's the running joke.
Yeah.
Well, that's Shazam, but the one with Sinbad called Shazam, the one that arguably exists in another universe. Right. That's the one people don't know if they're talking about or not. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. So it is kind of funny that because this movie does actually remind me of a little bit tonally those older 90s films. That or kid targeted it, but this definitely has a more modern or mature take on those kinds of things.
If the Power Rangers movie from the 90s, the one where they start skydiving at the beginning, right? If their intention was to make that movie today, it might look a little bit like this what we got.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some truth to that, especially after the ending.
I don't know where we ended up there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to say, you mentioned Power Rangers, and that brings me to the ending of the film, which, I don't know, So, like you said, Ryan, Shazam is not a known property, or at least not very, well known.
Right.
Did you guys know? I don't know anything about Shazam other than he says Shazam and turns into a superhero or whatever. But is that what happens in the comics? Chris, you probably know more than anyone. Do all of his
about
friends?
The Shazam family?
Is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
is that what happens?
Yes, the Shazam family is a comic book staple.
That was
okay, yeah. To me, it was a surprise. I was like, oh, what? They're all superheroes. I did not expect that to happen.
I was so giddy during that scene. One, because it was a surprise, and I haven't been surprised in a superhero movie in a while. But two, because I think the acting on all those actors, especially the little sister character, a grown woman playing somebody with the mind of a child in a grown woman's body is I could not have expected a more perfect performance out of that. And the same goes with all the other child counterparts from the foster home. I thought it was so well acted and it well written, and I thought that whole thing was really clever. It opened to so many fun opportunities and took advantage of most of them. I think it was a good time for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, it was just surprising, and that's always a good thing. Well, I can't think. Yeah, it's generally a good thing for me. So I was pleasantly surprised with the ending, and even with the villain. I didn't love this villain, but I think I liked the idea of this villain a lot, and I think they did a good job with the ending on him, especially.
Yeah, I think so.
The other beats throughout the film with him, the beat in the boardroom, I like that. I thought that was good. But some of the other stuff felt a little, I mean, cliche is an easy word, but it just kind of felt like going through the motions of what a villain needs to be doing, which is fine. It wasn't so much about the villain. But I think it kind of brings me to a bigger question. How did you guys feel about how they kind of conveyed the message? Or what did you guys think the message of the film was?
I mean, I think the message of the film is very clearly just, family. I think that's
like Star Wars.
Star Wars. What?
I can't really. I don't. See, the thing is that I wasn't too concerned about it with this movie, which is weird. But I think some vague concept about family is probably right. But I just want to take a minute and say that I really appreciated the depiction of the Foster family and how it was really about family, but not in a shove it down your throat kind of way. It just naturally depicted a loving foster family.
Terrible people like most.
Well, that's a trope that a lot of these kind of stories easily fall into. We can feel even worse for this main character because he's in such a terrible foster home. But it didn't actually. It's no, foster homes can be a loving place, and all different types of people come accept each other as family, and and I like the positive depiction, and it still worked in this movie. So yeah, Chris, probably something like what you said is right. I don't know, Ryan, what'd you think?
Yeah, I thought that was good. I thought a lot of the family elements were well played. I think that was more of a surprise of the film. I get, as opposed to the Shazam family, so to speak, as in the magical superpower element, mostly because I guess I knew that about Shazam. It was just cool to see that these characters. I guess I want to if they do a sequel, I want to see more of that family element come out and develop some of these characters a little bit more. So give them a little bit stronger identity. The little girl, I agree, was probably the best element of that. And yeah, I think they brought it together with the climax of the film when the Shazam family appears, and you kind of oh yes, all these this family that's sticking together. Now they get to also kick butt together.
Yes. Which is satisfying because you've already spent the movie with them and you like them by that point, and you're all right, yeah, cool, let's do this. Yeah.
And I mean,
I don't disagree that
the villain is he's his thing is the anti-family, right? Or more of your family doesn't have to be by blood. It's those that are willing to foster you, right? And his actual family was obviously terrible to
not
him.
Nurturing at all, and that was his blood family too. So that's that. There's a stronger point to be made there. I think.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say, I don't disagree with all the family stuff. I do think that's important, but I think kind of to me, a lot of it was more about kind of almost going back to what we're talking about with us, about this idea of nature versus nurture, and that there are heroes inside of all of us. And it reminds me a little bit of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you think about his family, it's very much those same ideas of like this diverse set of people all being heroes, right? Mm-hmm. And this idea that there's heroes inside all of us, but it's often these poisonous, toxic forces that prevent us from becoming those heroes, right? And
yes.
I really like that idea, but I think in one element, I wish they kind of hit harder, and that is this idea that like, so the villain, he becomes the villain because he was not nurtured. He was not given those opportunities, right? His obvious choice is by the family, but it's by the wizard. Even the wizard, the person who, like, he basically did the same thing his father did. And the only reason he didn't do it to Billy Barty or to Billy Batson is because the power was no longer there because Mark Strong had already taken it. And the idea being that, like, if anyone's given the opportunity, they could be heroes. Yeah. But if you're judging someone on purity,
Billy says
there's no one's going to be a hero.
I don't think there is this pure person you're looking for anymore.
Exactly. And I wish they hit harder on that point with the wizards. Yeah. This idea this wizard was searching for this purity. Like, he should have been more, like, not punished, but just, like, it should have been clear that, like, it was his fault that he created this villain. Is what I'm getting at. And that's, I think, thematically what ties into kind of everything else.
I agree with that. I wish they had given us a final beat on that because, he spends so many years and generations or whatever looking for someone of pure heart, yet never can find one. And then just when Billy shows up, it's like, well, shoot, good enough. Let's just do this.
Yeah, he needed to eat crow. He needed a I'm sorry scene.
Yeah,
exactly.
He should have.
And they should have come back to that at the end of the film and given us a final thing that was like, yeah, look, and Billy clearly was not pure of heart. I mean, he immediately starts abusing his powers.
Right.
And I think they could have made a pretty strong point that, especially with contrast with the villain, that with given the right power, it can corrupt you, or you can do good with it. Of course, the villain's corrupt before he gets the powers, so that's
but it's not based on his nature. It's not like the villain was born evil. He was nurtured into this by his family and the wizard. And Billy Batson was nurtured into being a good person and a good hero because of his family around him. And again, I love this theme, and I thought they did a really good job with it in a lot of subtle ways. I just wish it was just slightly more apparent, especially in regards to the specificity of the wizard.
I think that would have really rounded this movie out a lot more and really drawed things together. I think those are good points. I have to go back a little bit because you brought up Spider-Verse and it reminded me of like the idea like everybody fits the suit eventually. And I was thinking of the ending of this movie where when all the kids get the Shazam powers, they're all wearing that really dumb suit. I mean, it's such a dumb suit, and they're all other than the fact that they're different colors, like it works because it's like, it's the suit. Like the suit's not what's important, like it's who's wearing it, right?
I like that suit.
It's a dumb suit, Chris.
It's a dumb suit, and plus they had two red suits.
The cape is cool.
They did have two red suits, and
they couldn't come up with another color. What the heck?
Being a picky person, that bothered me. But it's not that big of a deal. But the point is that's the point, is that the suit's not that big of a deal. It's who's wearing it. I also have to just a random side thought you had during that. I was talking about how the wizard needed to eat crow. I was like, well, maybe he can come back as a ghost and like, Billy, I'm sorry, I screwed everything up. This is my fault, but you rose to the occasion. Good job. And then it reminded me of the Lego movie when Morgan Freeman comes back as a ghost at the end and does the same thing. And he's on a little like fishing pole string. Yeah. So maybe not. Maybe we don't do that in this movie. Anyway, Sean, I think I realized that you asked us what we thought the point of the movie was, and none of us answered your question, so you just went and answered it for us. So thank you for figuring out what this movie's about. I appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry, I was just feeding my own ego, but
yes, good.
But I wanted to at least give you guys a chance
Sean, are you still around?
To have the same opinion. Yeah, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted you guys to have a chance to have the same opinion as I did. That's all.
Well, we never came to it, so
Yeah.
Better luck to us next time.
Well, okay, so we kind of touched on it before we discussed, but how do you guys feel about the post-credit scene and how this film exists in relation to the other current DC films?
Well,
They're not necessarily related. Like, it doesn't have to be about the post-credit scene, but do you think it's like exists in the same realm?
Well, I'll say which one of we all got thoughts. Who are gonna
Go ahead,
first?
Matt.
Okay. Oh, well, for one thing, they followed Marvel's formula of having the first one be the like setup for the next movie, and then the second one being the funny one. Funny one worked for me. I thought the Aquaman jokes are always funny, I guess. The first one with the space snail, slug, caterpillar. Look, I feel like I finally feel like I think how most people feel when they stick around for the Marvel credit scenes and they haven't already Wikipedia'd it beforehand. Because I typically, for whatever reason, am prepared for the post-credit scenes of Marvel movies. I don't know why, but this I'm like, oh, that's definitely a talking space caterpillar. Okay, cool, rad. I don't know what that means, but as to your question about how it relates to the future of the DCU, I do not care. Like, honestly, like,
and that's a fair answer.
Make good movies, and I'll see them, and I'll enjoy them, and I'll tell people to watch them, like I will with this one. I do not care about the shared universe. That ship has sailed for me. It's too late.
I mean, I think that's exactly what DC hit upon, Chewy's. Your sentiment right there is they clearly have finally come to the conclusion that they jumped the gun with Justice League and everything, and they flat out said these films can exist in the same universe, but they don't have to necessarily be affecting one another. Right. It doesn't have to be building towards something. They can just exist. Like with the Superman at the end, right?
Yeah, that was great. That's fantastic.
That was supposed to be, just a little side note, that was supposed to be Henry Cavill, but because the school they were renting out while they were on vacation, it didn't mesh with Cavill's like time availability, so they couldn't get him to actually show up during the time that the school was empty. So
it made it funnier for me. I don't know. It made it better that we didn't actually see him. Just because the joke is that it's Superman, not that Henry Cavill came back to be Superman, you know? It also reminded me of Muppet Babies because you never saw Manny's face. So
yeah. But, I mean, overall, I think they're committed to, like you saw in this one, acknowledge the universe at whole, like mentions of Aquaman, the Superman thing. And then at the same time, they're more concerned with building themselves, right? The new Wonder Woman movie is really only concerned with itself. Yeah. I'm sure the next Aquaman movie will be very similar, only concerned with itself. The same setup for this one, right? With Mr. Mind. It's a setup within itself.
Is that the worm?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the caterpillar from Venus.
Okay.
There you go.
Ryan, you were going to say something. What were you? You had some thoughts?
Yeah. I felt like this movie kept reminding us that it exists in a larger world with other DC characters. Not necessarily that it's part of the same story or anything, but the movie is just constantly reminding us that Aquaman and Batman and Superman, hey, they're in this world, which actually, even though it was kind of like, we get it, it actually in a way worked for me because of the way they framed things with this character, Shazam, trying to become a superhero. And so therefore he kind of had, didn't, because he didn't know about, Billy didn't really know about superheroes. But
I was so ready to disagree with you until you made that point, because I was going to say a lot of this movie is about public perception of superheroes. So the fact that they reminded us that they exist helped the setting, I think.
Yeah, I think it did. And then that way he kind of there was a basis, and it played well with jokes and just little things where like, oh, we need to get a lair. Oh, you're a villain. Oh, those kinds of those elements kind of gave the children context, right? In that kind of sense, it became sort of meta, right? In telling this origin story, it didn't have to just be like unique, genuine, if that makes sense. Like, in Batman or Superman, you have to tell the story genuinely, right?
Yeah.
You have to make us believe that the character is uniquely experiencing these events and reacting to them genuinely, as if he doesn't know that he's a superhero and he doesn't know that supervillains exist and all the things in between. But because those things already exist in this universe, well, they have something to play off of. And I think that actually did work for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of a weird thing, but in the Batman Forever, the Val Kilmer Batman,
Yeah.
there's a one-off line where he says something like, he's got to be halfway to Metropolis by now. And it's just this little tiny line, but it's this idea that like, oh, there's more going on. There's other superheroes. There's other things in this world. It's not about them. It doesn't have to be about them. But like as an audience, like, oh, I know what that means. Oh, I know Superman exists. I know, right?
Is that like
so
in
it kind of reminded me a little bit
like in Batman and Robin, where he looks at the camera and rolls his eyes and says, "This is why Superman works alone."
Yeah,
just like that, right?
Sure.
Just like that, right?
Just like
exactly. But it also made me think that, like, I was reading some article or something, and someone was saying that DC's best path forward, or what they think might be the most interesting path forward for them, is if you take a lot of their comics that you remember. They're usually like one-off series, like The Dark Knight Returns, or The Killing Joke, or whatever, right? And they're not part of the general canon or continuity of the comics. They're just these one-off things. They're taking the characters we know and are established, but they're doing their own thing with them. And I think they're saying that that's kind of the best path forward for DC, and instead of trying to replicate Marvel Cinematic Universe where it's all shared, just take these characters and do the Killing Joke movie, do this one-off Joker movie. There's no continuity. It doesn't matter with anything that's going to change.
In the animated format.
But I mean, to an extent, sure. But for a wide market blockbuster mass appeal, it hasn't really been done.
Right.
I don't know. I just think it's an interesting idea.
But I don't think people want to see that stuff per se,
Chris,
right? Because
Chris, look,
we're just getting.
Chris, that stuff is so not widely known when you think about how many people see movies versus how many people read comics or even watch the animated adaptations. Like,
No. My point is like the first thing he brought up was Dark Knight Returns, right?
Sure, yeah.
What has been one of the major pain points about what DC's been doing?
I was using it as an
right?
example. I'm not saying make it dark like Dark Knight. I'm saying use like the one-offs. Use like these one-off series that don't take place in continuity. It doesn't have to be Dark Knight Returns. There's
I see what you're saying, Sean. More focus on like the graphic novel content than they're like long-running series segments.
Yeah, like do Kingdom Come or
Long Halloween.
I don't know.
Oh, I'd love to see Long Halloween
or whatever.
Right? Or Hush.
Right? Turn that into a movie.
Everything you guys just said is part of the long canon and are not technically graphic novels. Graphic novels are things like Dark Knight
I do
Returns,
not care.
Red Sun. Well, no, but that's my.
I think
my
the point. No, I think what the point is that get a focused story that is good on its own, a quality story, and hang the continuity. Do not worry about a universe. Just get the best stories that exists out there, and make movies out of them. I think that's what's being said here, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's the point.
Yeah.
I think I would prefer just wholly new ideas.
Oh, I mean, I would be okay with that too. Actually,
sure, that too, I suppose. But I think if you're gonna,
content, I think that'd be rad.
Yeah.
If it's still possible, if we as a species are still capable. That sounded really Reddity. I'm sorry. I take back that statement.
Well, I think in general, though, like some of us had a little bit more criticism than others, but at least for me, even though I can't say like it was something I loved, I think I definitely appreciated it more than a lot of superhero movies the last couple years. And so for that, I definitely recommend it. And I think it's something like teens and preteens haven't really had this type of movie for a while.
Right, we were spoiled that we had those kind of movies.
Yeah. So that's cool. And I don't know.
I do have one last
any other
comment.
final thoughts on Shazam? Oh, sure. Go.
Oh, sorry. What was that, Sean? Sorry.
I said, yeah, sure. What is it?
Okay. You guys will roll your eyes, but this is it's a gripe, and I have to express the gripe. So when the bus is about to fall off the bridge, right?
Yeah.
And he catches the bus.
Uh-huh.
So what do we think? Zachary Levi is about 6 feet tall.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? 5-6 feet.
Oh yeah, the kids everyone still die in that bus.
Yeah, everyone still dies.
What you're saying.
Him catching the bus, saving it from falling an extra 6 feet, saves no one.
Unless he's
It
real
still
squishy.
hits
Unless he gradually
Unless he's
stopped
really
it or
squishy. Unless that's a power that wasn't addressed, he's really squishy.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
That could be an added power, but yes, you're right. I thought the same thing.
I did think that too. But as somebody who ended up really loving this movie a lot, I'm just gonna assume that he has power of squish.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me have this one.
Cool.
You can have it.
Any other thoughts, Chris? Any other? I mean, this is go DC fanboy on it. Here's your chance.
I mean,
Well, we all liked it, so you have to contrarian and you have to hate this one because it wasn't as what's it like the Zack Snyder ones. That's what you're going to say, Chris, right?
I don't get the hate. I don't have to hate this one.
I wrote your
should be
script out for
throwing-
this episode.
This is my opportunity to just throw shade at Marvel, all right? Because we have a success here, something they haven't really done. This is a victory for DC. All right.
All right.
Are you good for a
Well,
while?
let's just let him have
Chris
one,
get it out of his
guys. Let's
system.
let him have this one.
He can have this one. DC made a great movie.
I mean,
Again, I stand
Endgame
by
comes
it.
out in
My
2
favorite
weeks,
one
so.
since the Dark Knight trilogy.
And that being said, kind of what we've hammered on in this point is obviously I'm sure we've all seen the Joker trailer at this point, right?
I actually haven't, but go ahead and talk about it. That's fine.
Well, I mean, we don't have to go into the details about it. It's just how different does that feel from everything else that they're doing and Marvel's doing? And I think that's DC's goal now is just
That's exactly
get
what I'm saying. That's
auteurs to
exactly what
get
I was just
in
saying that you were
and
disagreeing
make
with me
their
about. That film, I
right?
think, is exactly what my
I think
point
better
is.
or worse.
I think just in a broader sense, just in a general life sense, don't be concerned about what someone else is doing. Concern about what you're doing and try to do the best that you can, right? That's just life advice, but I think that's what DC should have been doing from the first place.
Well, I think what really hit DC hard was they got Zack Snyder, who has always been kind of a polarizing director, and they made him the focal point of their series, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was going to be Man of Steel. Then when Man of Steel did well, they were like, okay, make your trilogy. Let's get this thing off the ground. Let's get moving, right? And I've heard what he said his plan was, and I kind of liked it. I'd have to see it to actually know if I would have liked it, but I kind of liked where it was headed from what it sounded like. But I understand why people don't like his stuff, and I think that. So they did Man of Steel, they did BVS, and then the feedback really just came in really heavy, and they didn't really know immediately how to parse through that information they were getting because there was so much of it. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like they were reeling for a bit, but now they're just like, all right, no more of this nonsense.
That's good because it was nonsense, and it's weird to me when I think that like this movie is maybe in the same universe as Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how much of a mess that this has become when you have to start drawing those lines. But again, to me, at this point, it doesn't matter. You know, I don't care about that. They made a good movie. Please make more good movies. That's all I care about at this point.
I'm really interested in the fact that like James Gunn's going to be allowed to do both universes. Like, I mean, that sounds really weird. Obviously, he should be allowed to do both universes, no problem. But it seems like Marvel would be way
against
more
the law.
protective of their
Pick a
property
universe.
than Warner Brothers would be at this point.
I don't know. That whole situation is a bit of a mess that I don't know if we want to go into. But at any rate, yeah, there we go. Anything else? Hey, Sean, are you still around?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Oh, good. You sounded a little robotic a little while ago. I just wanted to see that you're doing okay. Yeah.
I like when they shot him in
Arkansas is
the
very
face.
robotic.
How about you, Ryan? How's it going on?
I'm not a robot. Why?
Oh, it sounds like something a robot would say.
Ryan, say I'm not a robot.
Just say, I'm not a robot.
I'm
Just
not
say
a
it.
robot.
I don't think Ryan saw that John Oliver.
I did. I saw it. I know what you're referencing. I get what you're referencing. Anybody who watches John Oliver gets what you're referencing. Everybody who doesn't know what we're talking about. Sean, do you have any
watch
other?
John Oliver.
Sean, do you have any other discussion points, or should I take us home?
No, I think I mean I got nothing else to mention unless anyone else does. So
Okay, great. Chris, why were you
yeah,
singing
bring it
while you
home.
was
Tell
saying
them
that?
where they
Why
can
were
do
you
it.
doing that, Chris?
Because it's really hard to tell with Sean right now when he's talking and when he's not. So I was just filling in the gap.
All right, great. I could hear him. Thanks.
I mean, I can't.
Now I
most
have
of
to
the
edit you
stuff I
singing
gotta hear.
Paradise City out of this episode. I'll post it somewhere by
Or-
itself, though.
during the whole episode.
All right, I'll take us home. All right. This has been After the Credits, the Yumchunks podcast. If you like what you hear and you want to hear us elsewhere from wherever it is that you're listening, we're on the original Yumchunks YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Podient, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, and I think a few others. If you search Yumchunks After the Credits, you'll probably find us on your preferred listening device. For any of those apps that have comment sections, that's the easiest way to reach us. You can leave us a comment. You can also send us a letter at yumchunks@gmail.com if you have any questions or something that you want us to read on air or whatever of that sort. And that, again, has been Yumchunks After the Credits. There you go.
We did it.
We did it.
Shazam!
Shazam. Oh, boom. Good. Bam.
Boom, I'm Chris. I turned into Chris.
You turn into Chris?
Yep.
Who do I turn into?
I hate Marvel. You turn into Vince. Say Shazam and you turn into Vince.
Shazam. Hey guys, I'm Vince again. I'm back. Sorry I didn't see the movie on
Hey,
time.
I'm Chris. I am Marvel.
Hey Chris, I don't know why you hate
Ryan,
Marvel so
say
much, but I
Shazam.
sure love disc golf.
Because they make the same movie over and over again.
Oh, Chris, you don't like Marvel, do you? There you go.
No, I like them.
I hate it. I hate Marvel.
Vince?
That was Batman vs. Superman. Is so
This has been
After the credits.
a Yumchunks podcast.